Hey everybody, welcome to Reading Your Way to Heaven. This is Gabe Gutierrez. I'm joined as always by Jason E. Pluribus Unum Spoolstra. Jason, what's up, man?
I'm good. I'm curious. Are you doing that reference because of all the gods that were spoken about in this
Out of
section?
many one. Out of many one, Jason.
Fair enough.
Out of many one.
I didn't know if you were going to I didn't know if you read the Constitution and that's what we were discussing today.
No. This is
The Articles of
more
Confederation.
specific. Right. Yep. I thought, we'd take a little break from City of God and no. No, of course I'm referring to Augustine's setup here, where he describes all the different many roles and gods and pieces, and says, well, what if, because there's some that say that Jupiter isn't everything. So what if this is all Jupiter, really? What if out of this many, there's just one?
Mm-hmm. I mean, these 5 chapters they were okay. I mean, it's like, okay. Again, it's just more of the same. So
A little different angle, though.
it's slightly. I mean, he gets more.
I mean, he's still going after the gods. Okay, yeah, that's the
Right.
same. But
He gets a little headier
I felt,
in the end.
yes, thank you. I felt like before, when he's gone after the gods, it has been for like their impotence, right? Or for, which he still does care a little bit too, but their impotence, or for yeah, mostly that. And,
Right.
and he
Either
spent a lot of time on that.
right.
But in all the different ways of their impotence, right? Like all the different misfortune that has fallen upon Rome, despite their fidelity to these supposed gods. And he spent a long time just outlining all the different failures and disasters that, not even all of them, but a portion of them that have happened well before the coming of Christ, or the start of Christianity. So,
What I was going to say was
in
it's like their inaction and their action, like where they were inactive or active. But I always thought in the back of my mind of, right, but I mean, you could throw that argument to the one true God, to the triune God, of saying, well, okay, but if God is, if okay, let's throw it back at you. Why wasn't your God here and acting for these people and at this time? So, okay, if there's your God, like you're saying that your God is there, then why wasn't he there for those people that were being enslaved and conquered and everything else? So I just had that in the back of my mind, and I feel like Augustine and his different approach in these chapters, like I said, gets a little headier and makes a better argument for those on a theological thought.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can see what you're saying. I think where Augustine would part is that he would say that he has never made the claim that worship of this God would lead towards, as you're so fond of talking about, prosperity,
Right.
right? And that is what the claim is for these other gods. That this is why you worship them, is for the material benefit. And so while the Christians don't necessarily net a material benefit, or in the way that we think, or always, or sometimes never, that's not the claim. The claim isn't worship God because of immediate material safety or benefit, but rather for the relationship with this being that created us, that we are meant to spend forever with. But yeah, that does get a little bit nuanced. But yeah, no, I see that's a simple comeback to Augustine. And so he does, in these next 5, go a little bit of a different route, which I did kind of appreciate, because now he's starting with Jupiter and he's saying, okay, I've just outlined all the different gods and all the different roles that they've had, right? Like in the last 5, we talked about, like, there's a god for all the different parts of the corn, you know? and how even these major gods, like Jupiter's only in the ether, like this high heavens, and then Juno is in the sky, and then Neptune's in the high oceans, and I forget his wife's name, but who's in the lower depths of the ocean, and so on and so forth. And so there's all these different roles and all these different gods, and it's just it's so much. And how do you, in this first chapter here, kind of talking about just all the different types. Well, first of all, I loved his opening line here in chapter 11. Of course, we're talking about chapters 11 through 15 in book 4 of part 1 of City of God. So let them make what claims they like in their scientific theories and arguments. Like, just let them have it for a minute. Let's just go with it. And I honestly, the way he phrased that, I was like, this could be right now. Like, this could be our response right now. Like, all right, okay, we'll let you have your theories and your scientific arguments. Okay. And so yeah, I definitely felt that. And he talks about how it's weird because at the same time you have Jupiter as everything is part of Jupiter, or Jupiter is part of everything. He's this great grand god that isn't everything and is a part of everything. And at the same time, like out of both sides of their mouth here, he also has a role, and he's only in this specific space, and there's only these certain things that he does and that other gods do, and one of which, and this is the line here that I also underlined because it was like, oh my gosh, come on, Augustine, that he fertilizes the earth with his seeds, in the earth, which is both his wife and his mother. Nothing disgusting in this in the divine context, with an exclamation point. Like, he's totally being snarky right here, talking about how, like, here's your great God committing this act of incest with, his wife, mother, and you're cool with it. Nothing to see here.
Nothing discussing at all with that. He goes on then for a very, very long time where you want to be like, okay, I got it, Augustine. I got a few more gods to bring up. Okay, no, I've heard those before. Yeah, no, Well, then let me also, Jupiter's in also all the goddesses, and we'll get all the way down into the god of terror of infants. Like, what? I didn't even knew that existed. Apparently, it does. Or the advent of hope and Volupia, and it just, he goes on and on of these gods and goddesses and saying, let him say that is him. He's in all of these, and in these characters here and all these people. Let Jupiter be all that I have mentioned. And this is in like 150 here. Let Jupiter be all that I have mentioned and all that I have left unsaid, for I decided to omit a great deal. I underlined that. I was like, did you though? Because it felt like he did.
I mean, I bet he did though.
I know, yeah. That's the scary thing. Let him and him alone be all those gods and goddesses, whether as some would have it, they are all aspects of Jupiter or forces of Jupiter. The latter interpretation is advanced by those who have decided that he is the soul of the world, an opinion held by men of apparent distinction and erudition. I can't say that word. So he's setting this up. He is building his argument. He's such a lawyer here. He's like, where are you going with this, Augustine?
A mile away, man.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, all right, okay, let's just go with this for a second. All these other gods that I'm about to name, he's in that. He's there too, and he's in this part, and he's in that part. So like, you can see he's setting up like Jupiter is really in everything, and so the idea here is how do we square this circle? Are there multiple gods, or are these just different aspects of the same one god that is Jupiter? And so do we just worship him and we're good? Because if we worship him, then we worship all the aspects of him. Or does he insist on us worshiping all the different parts of him, or and the different names, and like like just pointing out how preposterous that if Jupiter's in everything, then then why would he be upset? Why would he be angry if if there was one aspect of him that was omitted, because it's ultimately him that we're still worshiping, right? So just this, like, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Like, these two things don't work. There's either one God, and this is how this works, or these multiple things, and they're actually very impotent.
He goes on to talk, like, he uses the analogy of like stars in the sky, and he says, kind of wrapping up here in chapter 11, so if those gods are angry when they do not receive individual worship, are not the pagans afraid of living beneath the wrath of the whole heaven when they have propitiation, how do you say that word, propitiated but a few
That's
of them?
it.
While if they worship all the stars just because they exist in the Jupiter whom they worship, they could, by this economical procedure, have offered their prayers to them all and in the persons of God. This would have been better than to worship some of them and give a just cause for anger to the greater far number overlooked of them.
I thought that was a great point. I
Yeah,
thought that was like such a killer point.
yeah. And
That if
so,
we're terrified of like neglecting a God because we're going to be subjugated to their wrath, then well then okay, what about the stars? Because every one of them has a God, or is a God, right? You can't do them all. So then why not just pray to the one God Jupiter and kind of catch all of them under that, right? Like, surely that's got to work.
and so here, this chapter 11, he's been talking about the cosmos and the 30,000 foot view. And now he's bringing it back to the macro view, or excuse me, the micro view, with specifically here in this world, in the material world at that. And chapter 12, titled "The Theory That Makes God the Soul of the World, the Body of God." And so he sets it up beautifully, just saying, okay, let's use your beliefs, which is you believe Jupiter and God is in everything, in all everything that exists physically is God, is divine. If that's the case, then I better not squish on any more bugs or hit a rock or and then he's like, okay, even if you think that's hyperbole, I love it because he brings that point up. He's like, okay, well, I guess we can't eat anything or drink anything ever again. But okay, you may think I'm acting crazy. Okay, let's put those things aside. Maybe it's just rational animals. Maybe it's humans. Okay, let's just go there, and that leads into chapter 13 on that part.
Yeah, and so he continues his thought exercise, and so, like, okay, so then that means that if you were to smack a child, then God is smacked, right?
Is that where the band got
So
their name from?
how does a parent, right? How does a parent discipline their child? Are they disciplining God, right?
Mm.
And then of course the conquest. How do we wrestle with this?
And that if God is in, if every person is God, then whenever we do horrible things, when we sin, when we lust, when we are greedy or steal or envy, does that mean God is being lustful? That God is irreligious to himself? How does that work? Like, it's a house of cards, and it's crumbling really quickly on top of them. And basically, they are creating, I was going to say, a circular argument. Does that make sense? I mean, would you say that, or how would you how would you say? Because to me, it's like they'll say like, well, Jupiter's in everything, and he's in all the gods, but he's not all the gods because all the gods are their own individual thing, and so it's kind of a circular argument. But I don't know if that's quite right.
I mean, it certainly is inadequate and convenient. I'm trying to play it out in my mind. If there's a circle there that Jupiter's in every god, okay, great. So then, yeah, it's just weird, and it's weird when you think about the relationship between the gods and themselves because they have very human-like qualities, right? Like Jupiter apparently is the most bipolar of all gods, clearly. Like to have weird relationships with himself and times of struggle within himself.
It's more of a pretzel setup than a circle.
Yeah, I suppose that may be a little bit better way of doing it. Yes, but in any event, he's just showing how the logic of this doesn't hold.
So then we move on to chapter 14. If victory is, as they say, a goddess, it is inconsistent to attribute the growth of empire to Jupiter. And he just opens up with questions here in chapter 14. I mean, there's a lot of questions he throws out in this. I was just taking a quick look here. I think all but the last sentence, every single one of these sentences is a question except for the last one. So again, he's setting it up. I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah, and again, this is going back to the existence of the early nation states, which weren't very large, and how he said that, in the early days there was no like this takeover and desire to grow your empire. It was something that started later, and he's arguing like this was wrong. This is not the way that it should have been, and when those people won or lost, look at all the different aspects that there are here. And ultimately what we're seeing is if Jupiter's in everything, then he's falling on himself, right?
Yeah. I think it just going back here though, I think using in chapter 14, he brings up the goddess Victory. And as he says here, why should Jupiter himself be needed in this matter if Victory is favorable and perpetuous and always comes to those whom she wishes to be conquerors? So again, he's like, okay, if Jupiter's everywhere and he's part of all the gods, then we shouldn't need these other gods and goddesses. But if the goddess Victory comes at my bequest and is, the reason why I'm able to conquer, then why do I need Jupiter? Because she was there when I needed her and Jupiter wasn't. And she's the one who blesses those that are the victors of the conquerors. So, if Jupiter, is taking a holiday, as he says, Jupiter's, on the beach somewhere, kicking his feet up, why wouldn't I just go to Victory and ask for her help? Because she's the real champion here.
Yeah, you almost get the sense that he's turning the corner and starting the new argument here. Not a new argument, but the next step of this argument, and we're cutting it off right as he's starting to develop that. So we've just come off of this stretch where he's talking about the multitude of gods, but then Jupiter is actually in everything, and so there's this weird thing where there's multiple gods, yet just one god, yet there's it doesn't make sense. And they either shows them to be ridiculous or impotent, or you should be able to pray to one god and take care of everybody, right? And so he's kind of setting up that potential of like, praying to one God is effective and good. And then he switches here a little bit, talking about dominion and victory. And I have a feeling like I've not looked at the next few chapters, but I'm feeling like he's going to continue to build on that track.
It would make sense for sure.
So it felt like maybe there wasn't like the start. It felt like it was the start of a thought and not a complete one there with chapter 15.
Yeah, I mean, I think it started, like you said, in chapter 13, and it's continuing in chapter, it sets up the questions in chapter 14, and now this is his first nail in this new coffin that he has constructed, and he's trying to put to rest this argument about, in chapter 15, can good men consistently desire to extend their dominion? And like you said earlier, he's trying to equate the ancient Roman times of, we can get into the philosophical debate and the morality of one group of people conquering another group of people or taking over a dominion of another person's kingdom. And whether, when is it just, when is it unjust, etc. That being said, the just thing would be if he's using that argument that we heard way back, I believe in book 1, where he said the Christian religion, and this goes back to what you were doing a really great job of explaining, when I brought up that counter argument that people might throw in their face. One of the other differences that Augustine made in book 1 of, right, but your gods, they want gladiator festivals and debauchery and all these things where, they want to have sacrifice, where sacrifice for them, where our God, for Christ, not only is it's a different type of sacrifice, but it is him himself that makes the sacrifice, but also it obligates us to live a different way of life. And here he's given us, I feel like he's given us that first glimpse of the city of God, where he's saying the ideal, though, see, y'all are so worried about conquering and the fall of Rome and us being conquered and we conquered them. And he said, but in the beginning, it was not meant to be that way. In the beginning it should have been, we live in harmony with each other. Because we are following the one true God and we're following his laws. We are following his moral code, and our morality and ethics are following what he desires. And by following him and doing that, then we're able to find that peace among the nations and the kingdoms here and the empires. I know I'm kind of maybe projecting and expounding on that, but that's what I was thinking of as he was going through this chapter.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, Jason?
Nope. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be it for me too. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us each and every week. We appreciate all the time that you choose to spend with us. And, just another quick plug for our the new way that you can enjoy this podcast. That's via YouTube. If you go to YouTube and do a search for Reading Your Way to Heaven. And I think if you maybe in this show or in previous ones, Jason's put the link to the YouTube channel there as well, so you can find it that way too. We're just trying to be more accessible to each of you guys and maybe make it a little bit easier to share as well. So we appreciate all the love and support and prayers, and please know that you are in ours. Until next week, love you, bye.
Love you, bye.